Friends of Frisbee, welcome back to day 2 of the New Zealand Mixed Ultimate Championships Division 2 in windy Christchurch. We have DMT, the Dunedin mixed team with Abby Liddell, Graydon Scott and Matthew Wilson as their leadership. Matthew Wilson taking charge of the spirit side of the sport. Liz Goodwin, Elliot Wilson, Aoife Broad, Hilary Sheridan, Amelia Mance, Rory Liston, Jack Payne, Zigier, Rose Ursim, Michael Ernst, Harrison Free, Tim Adler, Olivia Altenberg, Carey, Alaguna, Sam Middleton, Jamina Botafogo, and Justine Ursua. Their opponents in this match, Ethos, Sam Powick, Rebecca Beattie and Jessie Chase is their leadership, joined by Richard Fernando, Nikki Alley, Georgia Fogarty, Riley Bruce, Arnaud Cartier, and Marie Legrell, Josh Cooper, Aini Lui, Aina Lui, Adian Marandang, Connor Vanderpill, Riley Hamlin, Caleb McCullough, Josie Morrison, Tia Lawson, and Max Utteridge. So the weather, as we saw in our previous game, Hamilton Fusion narrowly losing out on Universe Point to HMC ABC. The conditions are less than favourable. There's huge amounts of wind and a drizzle starting in. Not enough to dampen the spirits of DMT, who are getting very, very energised before this game starts. They came into this tournament as the highest seeded team. They have some very, very strong and confident throwers. We will see if they are able to overcome the challenge imposed by this wind. The temperature's starting to drop as well, probably more significant than as a result of the wind chill. And so we can see a couple of players already out with gloves, just making that little bit difference. Cold hands make it that much harder to catch discs. We have Ethos coming out in light uniforms, DMT in dark. I know that my teeth are certainly chattering. But that is not enough to stop DMT building a little bit of hype to bring the energy into this very first game. Sorry, not first game, first point of the game. Looks like DMT will be coming out on offense. So Ethos getting ready for the first pull to come down on defense. Now we've seen a lot of zone looks. Match defense is a typical defensive style scene, but when the conditions are less than favorable, marking space can make things a little bit easier, just to prevent, maybe put a bit of a hesitation in the mind of the thrower. Just slowing teams down just a little bit. Marking space can be quite effective when there's wind because it requires that much more precision and control in the throws. Quite often with regards to match defense, when you're paired up with another player, you can create enough separation to give yourself a bit of a buffer, maybe a window, so that if a throw isn't executed perfectly, you've still got time to react to it. In conditions like these with high wind, the distance on the throws tends to be reduced quite a bit, as well as the stability. And so it doesn't require as much immediate pressure necessarily on a player to stop them from catching the disc. Taking away the space, putting a bit of hesitation, a little bit of pause can often do the job. A big pull by Ethos, a little bit of a roll. It goes across the halfway mark, looks to roll back. Ethos stops that momentum, giving themselves as much room to work with as DMT start to work. Number 27, a forehand finds turf. But again, with the same consistent winds moving predominantly right to left on your screen, it's still going to be an upwind battle. A high, bladey forehand. It tips over just a little bit. And DMT with another opportunity, having regained possession. Green Scott, forehand, straight through the hands of the intended receiver. Ethos with an opportunity now. Sorry. Perfect. A high forehand, wind catches the edge of it, but it fumbles out of the hand. DMT now, crucial opportunity, low release backhand, a little bit too low, goes outside the hands of the intended receiver. Ethos with another opportunity to work back up the field. Work is certainly cut out for them in this weather. Again, for the stream, my name is Blair Monroe. I'm joined in the booth
by Ben Weber from Dunedin. So it looks like we've got another turn to the high side of the field with Graydon picking up the frisbee.
A big, beautiful forehand.
Caught by Michael Ernst. Looks like there's a discussion on the field.
And it looks like the players have signaled that the disc is going to be out of bounds when it was caught.
Some good, healthy discussion happening there. That's what we want to see on a hard, windy day. These guys have been battling it out, and we just want to see good frisbee like this.
Absolutely. The wind is going to interfere with the players' ability to make consistent efforts up and down the field, but hopefully it won't dampen their spirits. They'll be able to keep in a positive attitude while making these discussions, ensuring that the players themselves are respected as well as the rules of the sport. Ethos winding up a big hammer fake, gets a bite from the DMT defenders.
DMT putting on a zone, which is pretty typical in this sort of windy scenario. Just trying to work the handlers and force some mistakes. Some good fakes. Disc is up and caught by Ethos, number 95.
A big rip, high edge on the backhand, a little bit of roll. Purely territorial gain there. DMT now with a little bit more of the field to have to work up. The wind currently in their favor. A quick disc check to make sure that it's still going to fly as they intend. A big fake to shift.
Big
defense.
Throw over the defender, but no one's there to grab it.
Just a huge monster beforehand. The wind doing most of the work on that one. Again, it could have been a territorial play rather than necessarily an intention to score, forcing Ethos to undo all of the work from their territorial gain of their own, forcing them back to the front of their own end zone, and allowing the zone defense of DMT to really pressure it and add to the complications already provided by the wind. And we can see we've got a three-person cup trying to force to the far sideline. Chasing as a unit of the disc.
Just nice little pop passes and a swing that has gone down in the end zone.
Just throwing behind the intended receiver there.
Yeah, let's see what Dunedin can do with this. Looks like Abby Liddell to go pick up the frisbee and set it up.
Now, last year we saw Abby Liddell playing for one of the marvellous DC teams in Division 1. She's decided to lend her experience and expertise and technical proficiency to the DMT team, finding an easy around backhand for the score.
Yes.
DMT going up by 1, establishes pivot foot, straight around the mark for a score. No disagreement whatsoever by Ethos. And now, poor DMT with an uphill battle of their own.
Yep.
As they drive into the wind against the consistent and solid Ethos offensive we've seen already in this tournament. It's not going to be easy for DMT to stop that Ethos momentum from working its way up the field and scoring one of their own.
Graydon Scott having a discussion with his line on the field, hoping to set up some sort of defense and gain some position in this pretty difficult situation. That's a 10-minute first point of the first game, looks like.
Again, you can see the influence of the wind. Graydon Scott with a pull, touching down, still within his own defensive half, rushing to apply whatever defensive pressure they're intending.
Yep.
Looking to throw a zone of their own.
Noting that whenever that disc gets put up in the air, doesn't matter which direction it's going, it's getting carried by the wind.
Fernando with a massive hammer out into space.
Out of bounds.
So the disc will be returned where it left the field of play. Graydon Scott to pick up for DMT's offense. Again, hoping to work all the way back upfield.
Ethos playing a hard man defense. Looks like they're just trying to keep DMT honest on the field.
A big backhand with enough edge to bring it back in bounds.
Good defense by Richard Fernando.
Fernando, just one of those really, really solid players, using his fakes and his body to cue what he wants his offensive receivers to do. Sending a massive forehand. Graydon Scott manages to get a hand to it, but the disc is still alive until it touches the ground. Ethos defenders in hot pursuit, but it's not quite enough. We'll see that again. Wind up, sends this beautiful flat shot in the wind.
Big tip, and Nikki almost gets the frisbee.
So that's Nikki Alley, number 100 for the Ethos side. Graydon Scott with a big backhand up the far sideline, but Fernando again in position to stop that.
I think we'll see a bit of Richard and Graydon in this game, I would say.
Definitely agree. Again, the same forehand, but it's kept alive this time, reeled in a little bit shorter. The reset option goes high, not enough spin on that disc, not enough confidence in themselves, in the receiver, trying to offload it, but the wind picks up. Graydon Scott to retain possession for DMT. Being shifted, sends a high forehand, the wind catches it, tips it almost immediately. These are the hardest kind of conditions to play in. I would pick rain over wind any day.
Maybe even snow some days, but this is tough.
Absolutely.
More of Graydon in the end zone.
Yeah. You can see the difference in terms of playing downwind versus upwind. Ethos are able to get some very, very solid shots. Fernando, again, defensive positioning. But the difference in ease with which our Ethos players are able to send long shots downfield, as opposed to the DMT players having to fight upwind against it, should tell you, again, a massive forehand. Caught in, signaled out by our own team.
Now that comes back where it went out of bounds because it was caught out of bounds. And that is a great upfield point, grabbed
By
and that is Harrison, it looks like.
Adler to Harrison.
Yes.
Adler with the huge finding ground to keep that one alive. Low backhand. That's free over the hands of the bidding Fernando.
Yeah. Hotly contested point, and sometimes those shots work and sometimes they don't. And that one just paid off.
And as we've talked about, that was an upwind break for DMT, a crucial thing. Fighting against the wind, managing to secure it anyway, means they come out on defense now, and they have the opportunity to apply a lot of pressure to the Ethos offense, who are now having to work upwind themselves. If they are able to secure that break, it means they should have an easier time working the disc downfield, and they might be able to widen the score up from a 2-0 lead to a 3-0 lead.
Where are you two? Cutting one. Go with two. Who's two? Okay. How come you missed a match? Yeah, no, I'll talk to Mike. You just have to, yeah. Sorry, if I'm talking to Mike, I need you to help me out. Thanks, man. And camera one, can you come to your right now, please?
You can see the impact that the wind is having, rippling through the players' clothing.
Looks like we've got Elliot Wilson waiting to throw this, hoping that he can throw it with this wind and get it in the back corner of the end zone.
Wilson barely has to let go of the disc before it's carried all the way down the field.
Yeah.
Towards the back of the zone, catching the Ethos offense slightly out of position, forcing them to run back and allowing the DMT defense time to catch up. Fernando with an uncharacteristic bobble in the zone, exactly what DMT were looking for.
Now these players are trying to receive frisbees that aren't coming at them flat. They're wobbling around, and I don't think the camera's very showing of that, and it's much harder out there than any of us could imagine.
Absolutely is. Again, Liddell with a comfortable backhand, but again, that little bit of wind movement right at the end, and the clap just mistimed on the catch, causing possession to revert back to the Ethos offense. DMT coming out again in a three-person cup, trying to force to the far sideline.
Oh, big defense from Abby Liddell, getting that turn immediately to pick up the frisbee. Just a short pass to Sam Middleton, and they convert a downwind break, which is what you're hoping for off of that.
Absolutely. So bringing the score, again, just good patience, moving around, trying to shift the mark, trying to create an opportunity, finds one in Middleton. A nice short backhand. The catch looks a bit touch and go, but he keeps it secure, widening the score down to 3-0. DMT forced to work back upwind, so this is an opportunity for Ethos to really just use the fact that the wind is at their backs, send some long shots, have some receivers go through. Previously, when we've seen a DMT try and play defensively in this particular situation, they've left Graydon Scott at the back of the field. Just a really, really great defensive reader. Able to get a great position on the disc, much the same as Fernando, the role that he's playing for the Ethos side. Just sitting near the back of the field, trusting their athleticism to get them where they need to be, and trusting their experience to get them in the right position to really make a significant impact defensively.
As a bonus, having him in that downfield, you've got the option for him to pick up the disc and throw it before the defense gets set up, and he's one of those few players that can make some big shots in this wind, and we're seeing exactly how valuable that is today.
You can see the wind chill on the faces of the players as they're doing their best to rug up and huddle in the few seconds they've got before they need to start running out. Graydon Scott with a big pull. The wind turns it over, starts to push it back towards the halfway line. Free to establish the defensive mark. Fogarty trying to secure defender, sending the forehand up. Goes right through the hands of Ali.
Graydon Scott immediately to pick it up and huck it downfield for a turn.
Max Utteridge making sure that the possession comes back to Ethos. Free establishing the mark again. The same zone that we're seeing from Dunedin, but they're able to chip through it. Legrell working up that far sideline. Meaty forehand, a lot of edge. The Ethos receiver's out of position. And so that's going to be a turnover. It looks like there might have been an injury. Utteridge just shaking out the couple of the niggles.
No call on the field.
Okay.
A lot of these players have been running, let alone sprinting, many kilometers in cold wind, and your calves and hamstrings are really going to be feeling it today.
Absolutely. The muscles do start to tighten up, particularly in cold weather like this. It does mean that there is an increased risk of injury. And so it's really, really important that players do pace themselves. Free goes for it, and it tips out of his hands, going out of bounds. Ethos to take possession.
Otteridge to pick up the frisbee.
You can see the wind and the rain now on the field, making things a little bit clearer for the kind of conditions these players are having to work through. Turns to see the disc at the last second, manages a one-hand attempt at it, but it comes off the fingertips. Graydon Scott to pick up.
Yeah, normally in the backdrop of our camera you'd see some nice hills and maybe some blue sky, but not today.
Huge territorial attempt by Graydon Scott. But it goes out of bounds. Utteridge to pick up, marked by Free. Same forehand, off the tips of the fingers of Nikki Ali. Again, the cold weather makes such a difference in terms of making those catches secure. Just the fingers are a little bit less responsive. And some of these athletes have phenomenally secure hands. But in weather like this, it just adds that extra degree of complexity.
Nikki Ali with a D on that play.
Utteridge with a high forehand facing the wind. Graydon Scott takes the skies. Rips off a massive backhand after getting possession.
Harrison to grab that out of the air and hold on to it nice and patiently.
Blady forehand starts to turn over.
Right into Riley Bruce.
Utteridge again to pick up. Massive forehand.
Is there much else you think you could see in weather like this today, Blair?
Again, it's one of those interesting things in the game that we just had. We saw a lot of small ball, very sort of close quarters ultimate to try and combat against a zone defense in our previous game, where we saw Hamilton Fusion narrowly lose to HMC ABC. And really those are your only options in this weather, is to either send something big and high and hope one of your players can get underneath it to bring it down, or to really tighten everything up and try and play 100, 200 pass points, which does increase the margin for, or it reduces the margin for error. The more passes you make, the more opportunities there are for mistakes to be made. But again, the big forehand, Graydon Scott finds the position, says you're going to have to try something else.
Yeah, both of these teams kind of recognizing that the small game means that you might lose possession. The other team will take advantage of it big time. And here again, we see that disc going up and turning over because of the wind.
Fogarty with possession for Ethos. High backhand to no one.
That far side of the field is kind of where you see everyone playing to. Looks almost like the wind is at a diagonal towards that corner. And as much as Dunedin would like to get the frisbee on the other corner of that end zone, it's pretty hard to work it to that high side of the field.
Utteridge interferes for the defense, tries to send one through, doesn't go. Again, awful conditions for these players. to be competing in. It really shows, it's a testament to their mental will, their fortitude, that they are still out here giving as much intensity as they are. A nice backhand finds free on the far sideline, hoping to reset to Scott.
To Hillary Sheridan, back to Graydon Scott. It looks like they're working that horizontal movement on the field, and again, that wind just takes it. These players are trying to keep it as low and flat as they can, and some of New Zealand's best are having trouble out here, and I definitely would be too.
Fogarty for possession for Ethos. Finds Utteridge. And Disc finds ground almost immediately. Again, trying to play in these conditions really requires immaculate focus to establish a sense of consistency, the kind of consistency that you need when you have teams of this caliber facing off against one another.
Graydon Scott.
Big backhand, rips one up. Nice amount of edge.
Yep. Elizabeth Gooden picking that up, something that no other player could read, and she got it. Trying to find the dump with Graydon Scott.
And again, just in this wind, those passes need a lot of spin, and it can be very, very difficult, I think, to separate the amount of spin put on a disc with the directional power. And so those discs come in very, very fast. They can be that much harder to catch. We're seeing the same again. Fogarty looking to reset to Bruce, and it doesn't go, even though it's only a 5-6 meter pass. Getting it to get there consistently flat and catchable in conditions like this can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, this is as close as Dunedin has gotten to the end zone in this point, and they're just trying to make it work. Adler drops the disc, and that's a turn.
Graydon Scott making up a huge amount of ground to try and prevent that disc from seeing completion, but it looks like there might have been contact. The players are having a discussion now. The foul call looks to have been retracted. So the result of the discussion is that while there may have been contact, it won't have affected the play, or perhaps there wasn't contact at all. Graydon Scott pinned on the near sideline. As that disc had come off the hands of another player, Graydon Scott was able to make a second attempt at it. A huge bid for it, but not quite enough. Utteridge again, sending that high forehand that we've seen from him a few times in this game, goes just over the hands of the intended receiver. Another turn. Dunedin, once again, their work cut out for them. The full field to make up. We've seen that they are able to do it, particularly with Graydon Scott at the helm, just guiding their offense.
Yeah. In the bottom left, we see some Dunedin players just jumping up and down, trying to stay warm, and they're definitely feeling it. Running doesn't even help sometimes in this.
Utteridge again.
Picking up the frisbee.
Nice crossfield forehand into the zone. Jumped in for the catch.
95 for the score, and Ethos will be really happy with that long, hard-fought battle to get down there, and we're seeing that.
Absolutely.
No matter what direction you're going, it's a hard day.
More than 28 minutes into the game, the score now 3-1. Important point for Ethos as they don't have to go into the rest of the game watching that lead widen up as they remain blank on the scoreboard. So that 3-1 is a nice opportunity. It's a nice shot in the arm. It puts an end to the initial run established by DMT. It might be enough to swing the momentum back in the other way. And we're seeing Riley Bruce give 2 thumbs up. He would give 3 if he had them, I'm sure.
Here we see Richard Fernando come back on the line for his upfield point, looking to do a little bit of what Graydon Scott was doing.
Absolutely.
In the previous point.
So again, we've said that for the most part, Richard Fernando and Graydon Scott are kind of opposing sides to the same coin, really. Sitting in that deep space, trying to guide and dictate what their defense is going to do. as very experienced players standing back, they're able to give a lot of communication to players and make sure that as much information is available to them as possible, which helps them make more informed decisions and cut off throwing lanes and things like that.
Yep.
And so he's taken the field again. A very hunched pull before he unleashes.
A very, very big pull in this wind.
Manages to
Some good
keep
field
it
position.
in bounds, no less. But you can see Fernando again taking that deep space. Pinching in a bit to shut off some lanes. And again, that zone pressure just enough, keeping the hands out. Fernando immediately picks up the disc, lets Matt rip with a massive backhand.
Looks like it's coming back to the thrower. And Richard Fernando's the first one to touch the frisbee again.
Absolutely. So that constitutes a turnover, and in fact looks to have been a loss of yardage on that. DMT thankful for the opportunity, sending a forehand up. But it turfs.
Yeah, Jack Payne to Abby Liddell, that connection just missed Richard Fernando. Didn't see him on screen, but I imagine he played a pretty big role in that again.
Sounds like something he would do. Cupped into that corner, sets off another backhand. Much shorter this time. But again, DMT keep possession. Same big forehand, straight into the hands of Richard Fernando.
Yeah.
Again, as we've said, he's taking away that deep space. He's using his experience to make sure that he's in the right position to do as much damage to the DMT offense as possible. Working through around a cup. Looks to actually be 4 people in that cup.
Some little pop passes going off here. Trying to reset the stall count. And we get the disc back to Richard Fernando.
Too much pressure. Squeezing off that reset. The disc doesn't look to have done what Fernando wanted it to. It flew straight into the hands of one of those cup defenders for DMT. Shifting the mark. A backhand that gets picked up by the wind, but manages to be kept alive. Forehand straight through. And again to Liddell. Beautiful score for DMT, bringing it to 4-1 in favor of them.
Yeah, that looks like Amelia Mance to Abby Liddell. Classic combination.
Wonderful score for them. Widening up that score, maintaining that 3-point lead in a game like this, in conditions like this. A 3-point lead can be quite difficult to overcome. It's certainly not impossible. We can see the impact that the wind's having. The disc just let go to give it to Grayson Scott before a pull. It's just not enough. The wind picks it up and takes it all over the place. Again, these DMT players, despite the fact that they have a 3-point lead, they're still looking as serious as they were when the game started. They know that in conditions like this, it could swing either way almost immediately. The conditions really demand perfect play, and we've seen something approaching perfect play from DMT thus far, considering the conditions. There have still been turns, but they've been less execution errors and more just conditional influence.
Yep.
A pull that lands right on the sideline, which is a great opportunity to potentially trap, but DMT look instead to be trying to force back to the far sideline. Cartier to Fernando. Resetting to Cartier. High forehand, intercepted by DMT, no hesitation, finds the position, goes up, takes it. Graydon Scott sends a big backhand. Wind's pulling it back, players trying to get a read. Once again, Fernando establishing his defensive dominance, just getting up above free to make sure that that disc doesn't go into his hands. Threading the needle through
Nikki
to
Alley, yes. And Hillary Sheridan for second D of this point. Off to Harrison.
A dead flat backhand overthrown way past the intended receiver. Wasn't really much of an opportunity to get there, but again, it's going to make it that much harder for the Ethos side to work back down the field. Still in that cup, threading through the cup.
Yeah, here we see Richard Fernando's nice throws coming through, but doesn't make them easy to catch. Everyone's
Absolutely.
hands are quite cold, and we see people wearing gloves, hats.
Graydon Scott hoping to close out the point now. Sheridan on the far sideline. A high forehand, kept alive by Graydon Scott. Sends one of his own, goes for free, off the fingertips. Again, another turn, another opportunity for Ethos. Still working downwind, although the wind's becoming a little bit more gusty, a little bit less consistent, a little bit harder to account for. A big forehand. Once again, coming off the fingertips of Hamlin Riley, or Riley Hamlin rather. Graydon Scott looking for something on that open side.
Tim Adler grabs it.
Sheridan with a big fake to try and shift the monster that is Fernando. Back to Graydon Scott driving the DMT offense.
And here we see Ethos putting in a junk with Richard Fernando taking the mark on that low side of the field, trying to force some mistakes from the handler. And Adler to Scott gets another upwind point.
Just a really fantastic grab. We're going to take another look now. He's looking for something. Graydon Scott with a spin and has to take to the air to make sure he gets the disc, driving his toe into the ground to make sure that his first point of contact after securing the disc is in the bounds of the end zone for the score. DMT going up by 1 to create a 4-point lead. It looks like a timeout has been called. 5-1 to DMT at the 36th minute.
I don't think either team can be too upset about any drops or mistakes that they've made this game. I think anyone's going to make those same mistakes, and everyone's just trying to take care of their team at this point, and that timeout will hopefully do it and raise some spirits.
Absolutely. So a wonderful opportunity really for DMT to consolidate their performance so far. As we can see from the DMT huddle now, they're all sort of getting in with each other, sort of getting a huddle in to keep the cold out, but maintaining their spirits. Whereas the Ethos seems to be a little bit more stricter. There's a little bit more direction being given. We're seeing some heads down, and so it's the job of Fernando to not only bring those spirits back up, but to also remind everyone why they're here.
Yeah, Fernando, having played multiple Worlds campaigns and having years and years of experiences, trying to give that to his players and keep them as happy as possible in this. He'll really be the backbone, and hopefully everyone can learn something from him this game.
Absolutely. So DMT to come out on defense now. And it looks to be an upwind point for the Ethos offense. It's going to create a bit of a struggle, as we've seen, trying to work against that wind. That isn't necessarily going to make it easy for DMT to succeed in that. As we've seen, the wind can be quite gusty, it can be quite disruptive, regardless of which direction you're trying to play in.
Thanks, Ash. That's it, we there, mate. 22.
So only time will tell. Graydon Scott once again to pull in these less than ideal conditions. Graydon Scott gives the ready signal, sends a big pull straight into the hands of Utteridge.
Richard Fernando with a big grab, keeping that disc alive. Now, something I envy about this Ethos team is that they're using all their players in this wind, and they're taking shots that are coming off and getting real close, and they're not afraid to do that, not just playing a position game.
Absolutely, and it's important to remind that it is mixed ultimate. Slight execution error from DMT after turn, and then Fernando overthrows on Utteridge's layout.
Elliot Wilson holding the frisbee, waiting for some movement to be created.
Absolutely. You are right, though. DMT are centering a lot of their offense around the same few players. Ethos tend to be sharing the love a little bit more, spreading the disc around their players. Again, it being mixed ultimate, it's important to make sure that everyone on the team does get involved. Once again, Fernando trying to work around the zone defense established by DMT, looking to have shifted to an arrowhead, perhaps.
Riley Bruce with a great grab on that up throw, and the wind just takes it again.
Vanderpill on the defense. Graydon Scott.
Tapping it in 3 meters away from the field.
Demonstrating his rules knowledge. A low backhand straight into the hands of the Ethos defense. A run-through block. Fernando with another opportunity. Fernando on the far sideline.
Number 7 here has been quite essential in these resets and little pop passes. That looks like Loy, and really helping Fernando and Bruce with the stall count.
Graydon Scott with a massive forehand, perhaps a little bit overcooked, and swings out of bounds. With both of these players hungry for territory, it's almost like Fernando and Scott are just playing a game of long pass to each other. And so it's really nice to see, particularly with the Ethos team, the way they are trying to integrate those other players into making those little chip gains that are so necessary in conditions like this, particularly against a hard zone like the one DMT are putting on display for us. Again, Louis cutting through that zone, trying to pressure it, creating an opening on the other side.
Utteridge pulls down that frisbee and be quite happy with that.
Fernando's athleticism on display as he rolls to the ground to keep that one alive.
Richard Fernando's fakes, you see, making the cup move around in this zone, and just by himself, it seems to be making quite a lot of space on this field for his downfield to move.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things that I've always admired about Fernando's fakes, as he jokingly imagines what it might be like to throw an overhead hammer in this situation. With a player like Fernando who can release the disc from so many different points, it means that his opposition have to take those fakes a lot more seriously.
Now, after Lloyd took a good shift taking those pop passes, we saw Richard Fernando smiling and kind of laughing about it. Utteridge taking one, and they're just working it up that sideline nice and easy. Richard Fernando just having a good laugh.
Louis again, big sweeping fake, back to Fernando through the bidding defender, having the time of his life by the looks of things.
Extreme patience being executed here, and
Riley Bruce looking to cut through before the disc flies into the knees of Liddell by the looks.
Oh, that would be Amelia Mance.
Oh, Mance?
Yeah.
Flat backhand straight to the hands of Utteridge with a D and a turnover. Fernando first to pick up.
That lefty backhand, and Riley.
Beautiful athleticism, beautiful body awareness, making sure that those toes stayed in when that catch was secured by Bruce. Utteridge again, too much edge on the disc, but he's able to get a read, get position, and get hands to it. Finds Fernando in the danger zone, an upwind opportunity to score. Sees Louis. And Fernando again. There's a lot of space in the far corner, the diagonal opposite, but Fernando's not targeting it at the moment. Finds Utteridge instead, still focusing on that small, focused ultimate. Louis doing the same, just walking the disc up, meter by meter, trying to cut through the zone. Utteridge finds ground to keep the disc. Back to Fernando, just hoping to shift that zone, maybe lull them into a false sense of security with their just patient half meter, less than half meter passes. Letting the zone walk them in a certain direction, then cutting all the way back through. A massive bid from Graydon Scott to shut that down.
Yeah, just as Ethos may have found some footing, Graydon Scott throws the frisbee back, and
a huge rip continued on by its receiver, but finds ground.
Richard Fernando in a very familiar place at this point.
With the disc at the front of his own end zone, with the full field in front of him. Wind takes the disc straight off Louis, a nature strip. And now DMT with only centimeters left to gain before they score their 6th point.
Nothing is certain even this close to the end zone.
Absolutely. In conditions like this, as you say, Liddell forehand finds turf. Break backhand through the cup to Utteridge, back to Fernando.
Fernando just finding those holes and exposing a few weak points in Dunedin's defense. Looks like there's a call on the field, potentially some contact.
Players just having a discussion now, taking the opportunity to come to a conclusion or some sort of agreement as to what happened. Looks like Louis will retain possession of the disc. Again, big fake, small reset to Fernando. We can see now that the structure of the cup has changed a bit. He's cut through that zone in the same place a few times with the backhand, so DMT are actually leaving a player there to block that space, making it a 4-person cup instead of just a 3-person. Once again, that backhand opportunity being shut down, but Utteridge manages to find an opening anyway, sees Louis. To Bruce, who fumbles. A turn, DMT with an opportunity. As you said, nothing is certain.
Yep. There's a factor in that as soon as the disc hits the ground, it's a turnover. So you need 100% completion rate on one holding of the frisbee to actually score the point. You can get 99%, but if you drop one pass, the other team gets a chance.
Absolutely. A nice forehand option on the far sideline, but it curves back in just a little bit steep, finds ground before the DMT player manages to get a hand to it. Graydon Scott one more time on the sideline, marked by Vanderpill.
Liston to Wilson, holding the disc with some nice reserve, waiting for Graydon Scott to come back and pick it up.
Lou with the run-through defense.
Huge part of this point. Taking resets, playing defense against Liddell, who is another Worlds campaign, huge player for New Zealand, making some big plays when it counts.
Fernando in the coffin corner. Manages to get a floaty backhand through, finds Utteridge. Just slowly chipping away from the danger zone.
Sam Middleton with a cheeky little hand block on one of those pop passes. And Dunedin takes control of the disc again.
Graydon Scott one more time to pick up. Wilson as his potential reset option. A high backhand for a comfortable catch, taking the score to 6-1, widening the margin in favor of DMT, Dunedin's mixed team against Ethos. We'll see that again. Nice pivot, shifts the mark as soon as the option's there, sends a high backhand, knowing the wind isn't going to interfere as much, going downwind for a comfortable catch for DMT, who now need to come out on defense.
That was another big point, big shift put in by all those players. You'll see them all taking some subs and taking care of themselves. We'll get some new faces on the field and see if Dunedin will be able to work it up.
A little bit of confusion as to whether or not it's a 4-men point or a 4-women point. As we can see, only 6 players have taken the line thus far. 3 of each gender waiting for Amelia Mance to take the field. This is a 4-women point.
Have we lost Cameron? We lost camera 2. I've lost camera 2. I've lost camera 2. No, I've lost camera 2.
Harrison free with the disc.
We see Dunedin on the sideline playing some games, trying to keep their spirits up and keep their bodies warm.
Again, it's hard to stress, the wind itself is invisible for the most part. You can see the rippling of the players' uniforms, but it's important to recognize what kind of impact that wind chill factor is going to have as well. Bare hands are going to start feeling numb. And catching some of the discs, particularly at speed, can cause quite a lot of issues in terms of making that numbing even worse. And if those fingers don't close, they cannot catch a disc. And as you were saying before, if you can't secure 100% completion rate, then the opportunity gets, or the opposition rather, gets an opportunity to defend against you or to score on you. A big forehand. It's caught, but was it in? DMT signaled that it was in fact a point.
Nice quick point from Ethos there, and that's what they really want to see.
Absolutely phenomenal athleticism again. Knowing that the momentum was going to carry him out of bounds, just ensuring that those toes dragged to the edge of the end zone as the disc was secured, making sure once again that the first point of contact was in bounds. Ethos will be very, very happy with that as they move to 6-2, starting to narrow that lead. It's almost a game of attrition at this point. Each team knowing that each point is the most important one. DMT hoping to widen a lead and secure a victory for themselves. Ethos hoping to chip away at the lead, knowing that the wind could change at any moment, that conditions could reverse a fortune, or cause a reversal of fortunes. And so every single pass is critical, every single reception is critical. And it really is a case of which team's going to be able to maintain the mental will to complete accurately and precisely.
Yesterday we saw the wind take a 90-degree turn in the middle of a game, and we saw some games go from being one-sided to being quite close battles just due to that. And I think all the players are aware that every point is counting here, because it could do that yet again.
The wind giving just enough settle to allow the pull to go past the halfway mark. Ethos to come out on defense, looking to set up an arrowhead zone, perhaps, possibly, or maybe a cup, trying to force that high sideline. It's not enough to contain Grayson Scott. Harrison Free leaving the field to try and catch the disc. So that's definitely, he's called that out of bounds himself, but there looks to be some discussion. DMT now applying a lot of pressure with a cup of their own, perhaps a little bit closer than they should be. High backhand, edge catches it. It's going to find ground, be a turnover, an opportunity for DMT to close out, only 5 meters away from their own zone. 5 meters away from a score.
Here we see Dunedin stretching the field a bit, and Ursum with a unfortunate drop in the end zone. Her first tournament.
Goodbye, cruel world. Sheridan centers the disc.
Zitier.
Beautiful shot. It looks secure, and then at the last second, tumbles out of her hands, giving Ethos another opportunity. Working the disc back upfield. Without the calm leadership of Fernando, but still able to make string a few passes together.
Yeah, in this wind, it's all about grabbing it and maybe just waiting a few seconds before you even let that frisbee leave your hand, get comfortable again, and see that with Scott as he takes his time. Sheridan again to Zitier. Sheridan throwing lots of fakes and loses her player, but disc still finds the ground.
DMT once again establishing that defensive zone that we've seen work so well for them this game. Louis slips, fumbles. Graydon Scott again leaving his beloved deep space to pick up the disc and initiate the offense for DMT one more time.
In these points where you do play zone offense or defense, you really want that person playing last back in your zone or playing in that deep space to be able to pick up that disc.
Absolutely. Finds free Scott, but it tumbles out. Unlike him, we haven't seen those kind of errors from him thus far. DMT immediately re-establishing the shape of that zone, forcing the disc to the ground. Huge forehand.
Oh.
Tipped straight into the face by
Face
the
and
looks.
hands of Harrison and goes in the ground. That would have been a pretty good highlight reel if that had come off, but
it would have been a beautiful opportunity for a score. Defensive pressure by Ethos, just enough to upset it. Manages to find a reset in that far corner. Huge disc, turns over completely, landing upside down in the wind. Scott finds Sheridan. Massive fake to shift the defense. Finds Scott again.
finds number 99. It's patience with the frisbee. Scott takes it again.
Players in the backfield signaling that they are very open. Goes for an inside forehand. Skips past the Ethos defenders, but it's a little bit low. Ethos to take possession. Again, we were seeing a four-person cup, maybe without Richard Fernando's cup-breaking backhand. They've been able to reposition that. Lets it rip, looks for territory, hits the ground and rolls out of bounds. Graydon Scott to pick up one more time. The wind is howling outside. It's making things just that much more difficult for our players. We can start seeing the impact that it's having. Our rain is falling almost sideways.
Scott trying to direct his players where he wants them to go, or where he can throw maybe. Picks that disc up out of the air almost effortlessly.
Shifting the mark, finds Sheridan. Huge backhand fake. Graydon Scott again trying to overcome the pressure of that cup. Goes over the top this time, finding Free, who quickly resets back to Scott. The cup reestablishes themselves, but he goes over the top again to Free. Same connection again. They really do need to shut that down.
Those lefty backhands coming in really valuable, nice and flat. Lets you get it over that second defender and hopefully find a player that you wouldn't be able to with your forehand. Sheridan throwing lots of fakes and
Forced to push the far sideline. Free takes a dive to see if he can keep that disc off the ground, but it's not enough. Louis again with that massive fake, hoping to shift the cup. Number 33 pinned on the far sideline by the DMT zone. Again, looking a little on the close side, but no call's been made. The throw goes OB, out of bounds. Graydon Scott to pick up.
now we've just broken the 60-minute mark on this game and haven't quite reached half yet. We're having a real battle, and
once again, Scott going around behind the cup to find Sheraton. Every attempt to trap DMT's offense on that sideline has resolved the same way. Graydon Scott going around behind the cup looking for a two-pass before slashing across the field to get the disc back himself.
Dunedin really using this lateral movement of the field, something we haven't seen quite yet this game.
Again, that lefty backhand you mentioned before finds Free. Low shot towards the end zone, finds turf before it finds player. Ethos with a full field to work up again to hopefully score their third point of the game.
Looks like some discussion on the field.
Timeout has been called.
Veteran call.
Absolutely. After the number of turns that we've had in this point, players are just going to be absolutely knackered.
Be cold, give them a blanket, hot water bottle. Like, I might call 2-3 timeouts right now and go have a break maybe. I really feel for them, and looks like the Spirit captains are shaking hands and saying, this is probably for the best, right?
Absolutely. In fact, we can see blankets have come out for the Ethos side, hoping to just keep that wind chill out of the huddle. The players are getting a lot closer than you might see on a warm day.
Yeah.
You can see there the strength of the wind as it blows from the right-hand side of the screen towards the left, and just how much of a difference that's making in terms of where your team is positioned on offense and what you're able to achieve. When the wind is at your back, it really does open up just a lot more variety in terms of the throws that you're able to try and get away.
Yes.
And having that variety of throws in terms of throwing overheads, throwing around throws, adding edge to the throws to get them to curve and flight, really opens up your offense, and it gives your receivers a lot more options when it comes to making those completions. When the wind is at your face, any errors are immediately punished. Any high edges of the disc are caught by the wind and flipped over, making the discs almost impossible to catch, as we're seeing today, as these teams battle what are some increasingly atrocious conditions.
Yep, and Christchurch may be consistently windy, usually not this windy. I don't think I've seen conditions like this at a Christchurch tournament in years. Dunedin might be cold in the winter, but I don't think we face these conditions very often either. Both teams really out of their element and digging into some mental fortitude to make this work.
Absolutely. DMT might be up by 4, but there's still a lot of time left in this game, and the progress happening is slow. Remember that huddle isn't for the halftime. It was for a timeout that was called in the middle of an incredibly long point played by both of these teams.
Yep, each team gets one floating timeout a game and one timeout a half. So each team still has a timeout this half if they so choose to use it. And depending on how long this point goes, we might see it again. we might see Ethos work this up with some newfound hope and reserves.
So the wind is starting to buffet the teams even on the sideline. We can see, thankfully, the blanket giving us some indication as to how strong that wind really is. As Louis takes the disc, tries to work it for Ethos. A fumbled breadbasket reception turns the disc over. Once again, DMT potentially only inches away from a score and pulling their lead wider open. But as you've said multiple times, nothing is certain.
Yeah, we've been here before this point. Sheridan to pick up the disc as a new tactic. Really safe hands. And looks like we've got Scott running around, looking fancy on his feet.
As much to create an opening for his team as it is to just stay warm at this point.
Yep. And Sheridan puts it hard and doesn't find the hands of Scott.
Once again, we're seeing the DMT establish that three-person cup, giving us a little bit more space, but they're still able to crack through.
Oh,
Louis with a big fake, and the disc slips out of the hands. I know it looks like a call has been made. Potentially that contact was made that resulted in a strip.
it's gutting. It's even hard to hold on to the Frisbee in these conditions, let alone catch it.
One of my worst Frisbee memories was in the middle of a tournament where after having applied sunscreen, received the disc in the middle of the field, and a forehand fake straight into the ground.
Oh, my.
It really does break your heart. DMT are going to capitalize on that. That same connection that we've already seen, Sheridan to Scott, but this time for the score going up by 5 now, as DMT are 1 point away from half in the 66th minute of this quarterfinal match.
And I think not only Dunedin, but Ethos might be happy with that, getting some fresh legs on the field, trying to fight upwind. They did a good job. The roster depth really showing. If you can put up a point for that long against some really, really talented players, I'd say you're doing a hot job. And in these conditions, you really need 14 people that can get on the field, because if you don't get a break after a point like that, you're really going to be feeling it. Not even tomorrow, probably today.
Absolutely. I mean, the length of time that these players have spent on the field just constantly working up and back and working up and back. And there's the psychological element of tiredness as well. Like, there are only so many times where you can sit and watch your teammates and friends try and pass the disc to you and then have fumbles causing a turnover, and then you're back on defense.
Yeah, and you're on your feet the entire day. Not exactly in fit for weather clothes, because you're going to be running. Now on a sunny day with fair weather, you might be running between 3 and 8 kilometers in one of these games. These games you might not be running that much and you're not so worried about sunscreen, but you're still moving around and potentially worse off because your muscles aren't warming up as they should be.
Wilson with the pull, turns over, hits the ground just in front of the brick mark.
Liddell to put that on the ground so it doesn't go further towards their end zone, which we've seen quite a bit of this weekend.
Harrison Free establishing the mark on that cup one more time, as we've seen him do. Fernando back on the field now. Big hammer. Beautiful score. Again, as we said before, when the wind is at your back, it really opens up a variety of throws. In this case, a beautiful, straight over the top of the cup, sees the option, sends the hammer, unmarked receiver. A beautiful score for Ethos.
Yep.
7-3.
That throw is not any easier with wind, and making it look that good is tough. The receiver, some safe positioning to make sure that lands, and Richard Fernando, probably glad that he's practiced it, even though a lot of players would say it's goofy. It really, really works.
So Ethos to come out on defense now.
Maybe Richard Fernando is just happy to be playing at downwind point, you know? battling it out.
Just
After
pulls the hammer out of the holster. He's like, I'm going to celebrate.
exactly, you know,
And again,
you've got to take the little things.
we're going to see the Ethos side coming out on defense now. So Fernando, having spent that long point off, deciding to get back involved, he'll be leading off the defense with the pull.
Are you dropping power? Is it your power supply? Just want to check that. Have a look, mate. I'm going to use one. One, push in slightly, please. One, and follow it. Whoa, hold it there, mate. Okay. Okay. And go with the one.
That is one of the
Huge
biggest
pull.
pulls.
And the wind catches it, arresting its momentum at the top of its arc, causing it to drop almost straight down.
Payne to Mance. Wilson, safe hands, holding onto the frisbee.
Utteridge on the mark, pressuring it enough. Has to go low to get beneath those limbs, and unfortunately for the DMT side, the disc does touch turf, giving Ethos another opportunity. Yes, it is upwind, but we've seen the kind of nickel and dime give and go slow gainers that Ethos are capable of. They can work the disc up the sideline if they need to.
And Richard Fernando finding those holes.
A layout to keep the disc alive. A quick dishy to Utteridge causes a turnover. Big forehand with a bit of edge, but the wind stops its downfield movement, instead carrying it out of bounds.
These little dish passes that we don't practice often, you're seeing what happens if they come off with no spin in wind. They kind of float there and then flop and then fall. They're really hard to grab no matter how hard you attack them.
Richard Fernando once again trapped on that sideline.
And he's finding holes.
Thanks to cutting to you too.
Just making sure everybody knows the disc has a finger between it and the turf.
He hasn't moved, and that is incredible.
Again, in times like these, when it's questionable, it's a really wise decision to just hold that, make sure everyone is aware.
I can madly respect that. That is some good frisbee.
Perhaps matched only by Christian Lovell's chin grab from yesterday in a game against Gangrene. Fernando with the hammer, but the wind's caught it. A lot of players looking to take a bite. None of them getting secure. It looks like there's an injury. Utteridge.
Everyone's going to stop play and make sure everyone's okay. Utteridge in 29, colliding just a bit, and play is resuming.
So no injury has been called. They retracted that. Finds Liddell. Nice dishy.
Mance to Payne on the end zone line.
Very diligent defense as DMT finally, 73 minutes into the game, take half. Very clinical ultimate, just using their positioning, using marks being out of position to just make a couple of quick passes and close that one out. 8-3 Dunedin mixed team against Ethos. My name is Blair Monroe.
I'm Ben Weber.
And we will be back shortly after this halftime. Hello again to all my Frisbee friends. I'm glad you came to play. The fun and disc sports never end. Here's where we are today. It is day 2 of the New Zealand Mixed Ultimate Championships Division 2 in Christchurch. The Orthrotahi in Ortotahi. DMT versus Ethos. DMT just having taken half time at the, coming back in at the 80th minute. DMT to come out on defense. The Ethos side with a downwind point. The conditions here are less than optimal for Frisbee. My name is Blem and I'm here in the booth.
I'm Ben Weber, and yeah, we're stoked to be here in the booth instead of
Out on the
outside,
field, yeah.
really. This is some hard stuff, and it feels like it picks up every time you think that it might be okay.
Yeah.
It's really not. These players are getting used to it from yesterday. We had quite similar conditions, and we're seeing a lot of adaptation from players.
Absolutely. You can see the kind of wind that we're dealing with. Graydon Scott with a massive attempt at a pull, but the wind catches it, pushes it back, only advancing up the field about 20-25 meters. So the Ethos are Fogarty now to initiate the offense. Straight to the hands of Riley Bruce, straight to the ground after just not enough spin on the disc means that it wobbles in this wind. So DMT, just coming out on defense, have already managed to secure a turn. Graydon Scott to pick up.
Ethos playing man defense.
Richard Fernando dives for it. And a clean bid over Sheridan.
Good defense from Richard Fernando.
Beautiful bullet of a forehand looking to find Riley Bruce's outstretched arms as he's unable to run on and secure it. Again, having the wind at your back just pushes those downwind attempts that much further, that much faster.
Yeah, you really have to be faster than the wind to catch those Frisbees.
And that's hard to do at the best of times. When the winds are out in force like they are today, there's also a little bit of a drizzle. The disc's going to be a little bit wet. It's going to be that much harder to catch. Graydon Scott to lead off the DMT offense now.
Number 95 putting on a nice big mark.
Fernando with a beautiful interception as the disc passes through 2 or 3 players' hands. A nice forehand. Makes that connection a second time as Riley Bruce, a static receiver this time, manages to secure a point for Ethos, taking it to 8-4 in the top corner of the zone. How do you feel about that point?
I mean, I would be happy if I caught a Frisbee standing still in the end zone. If I'm Riley Bruce, I'm standing in the right place. Richard Fernando's got some good throws.
I think I'd be happy catching a Frisbee in this weather at all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to see Ethos still playing man defense instead of playing zone into the upwind. Keeps individuals very honest instead of allowing for some shenanigans or really being super hard to play against. It gives opportunity both ways for a bit of outplay, and it gives opportunities for a bit of lateral movement on the field, and you see some bigger plays off of that.
Absolutely. And even though we are approaching our soft cap at 90 minutes, Ethos to take the first point of the second half is a big deal for them, as they're able to now come out on defense, but with the knowledge that they still are able to convert or hold, as the case may be. They're still able to execute plays as they intend. They're still able to get off the throws that they know they can make. A little bit of communication as we await the start of the point.
This is it. I think it's going to be doing the 2-4 flat.
Fernando with the pull. Huge rip. We lose it in the sky, but it comes back just around the brick mark.
Yeah, that you'd normally be playing to if you're on the other side. That's quite a mental struggle, saying this is how far I can throw in this wind.
Wilson far sideline, working with Mance, swinging back the other way, over the tops of the defender. Considering whether or not it's worth taking to the ground for, but decides against it. Fernando to pick up, having the time of his life. Louis and Fernando working around the cup.
In a familiar position here.
Absolutely. And we've seen similar before. Credo versus F-Troop, I think, last year in the Australian Mixed Ultimate Championships, we saw a Credo team that had Fernando at the helm. are doing the exact same thing, just calmly working through a zone, using his fakes and positioning to queue. Again, occupying the deep space and stopping those deep threats, saying, look, I'm going to make you work harder for it if you want to score. So Fernando takes the disc in the coffin corner.
Yeah, Middleton might be the tallest player on the field, but Richard Fernando's ability to read the frisbee really shows. Middleton, coming from a football background, has some good footwork and quite a lot of athleticism, but can't come down with the frisbee. Out of the hands of Middleton, almost caught by Ursum, but
not quite enough at the end of the day. Oh, Utteridge taking his second tumble of the game, calling a foul at the positioning of the defender. As they moved into the space he was trying to occupy, may have had an impact. Fernando to Louis. Huge fake, shifting the zone. They've shifted to almost sort of a floating four-person cup now. That same break backhand through the cup that we've seen Fernando execute flawlessly a few times during this match.
I think Utteridge will be happy with all of the footage of catching some layout frisbees in this game, and his footwork. He's been really, really handy and reliable in that position on the break side.
Ethos maintaining possession, looks to be having that same three-person cup, but having that person take away that space that Fernando keeps targeting through the zone. Fogarty now. Fernando. Utteridge managing to chip through that zone. Slow gainers just trying to force the cup to get behind the disc for long enough to make a big play. Once again, we can see that channel Fernando keeps using got blocked off, but not close enough. Vanderpil gets it.
Yeah. Ethos breaking the halfway mark on the field is a big point, and you can see a bit more confidence in their players as they move, and all of them are working together for this.
Fernando, Fogarty. Fernando in position now, finds Utteridge. Fernando again as the cup forced to just chase the disc. Fogarty again. Now typically with a zone like this in favourable conditions, you'd make large lateral movements across the field, just forcing those players chasing the disc to tire themselves out. In conditions like this, that isn't really an option. You don't have the same consistency of throws to really make them move as much as you like. And we can see that Ethos are making the best of a bad situation. Little nickel and dime, just trying to catch that zone out of position by moving the disc backwards and forwards, almost like a sort of little sidesteps or juking.
Yep. You'll see Richard Fernando really stretch his legs to get some distance on his even small throws and move the defenders, making some pace here, no matter how fast or slow it may be. And
beautiful patience by Ethos for the score. Again, it's what we predicted. We've mentioned a couple of times that they're able to just keep working up and down the sideline. Just Fernando, Louis, the cup trying to stop any big plays, but still giving them enough room to work through until they're able to chip one through and close out the score, narrowing the lead held by DMT to only 3 points.
Yep.
We are still only a minute and a half away from hitting soft cap. If Ethos are hoping to tighten up that score, now is the time. They do have the wind at their backs again. We know that Richard Fernando can make those kind of throws. We know he's got Riley Bruce on the field as one of his preferred receivers for those big plays.
Yeah, and now they get to play downwind, which they'll be very happy with. Ethos playing that nice, slow, steady pace up the field is a satisfying thing to do. Might not be the best thing to watch. It's no layouts and no huge skies, but I think that reserve that they're showing to make that sort of work of the field is admirable at this point.
Absolutely. It reminds me of some of Floyd Mayweather's boxing matches where he uses his defensive technique as opposed to his power to win a game on points. He's really chipping away at his opponent. Ethos are trying something similar. A massive pull with a lot of roll. Beautiful finding the DMT offense out of position as it goes out the back, giving the Ethos defense plenty of time to get themselves in position as DMT have a huge upwind struggle ahead of them. But we can see now that, and there's the hooter for our soft cap. That's just gone. So we will complete this point and add 1 to the highest resulting score, and it will be a race to that number. If DMT are able to consolidate this upwind point, they will go to 9-5. We'll add 1 to that, and it's a race to 10. If the defensive pressure exhibited by Ethos causing an error like that, Riley Bruce catching that forehand. You can hear the disappointment in the Ethos players' cries. If they were able to consolidate that, they would go to 8-6, and it would be a race to 9. Graydon Scott on the offense against the arrowhead zone set up by Ethos.
Yeah, that zone is specifically designed to stop those big throws that Graydon's been putting up earlier, and they're not playing it on the other handlers. As soon as Graydon gets the frisbee, there's a huck stop and on both sides because he's really got the throws to make it work.
Beautiful backhand, catches the hands of the DMT, but it's tipped off.
Rolls back a bit even. A few more yards for Ethos.
Cotier with the forehand. Immediate interception by Grayson Scott, occupying that deep space. Responding with one of his own, a little bit on the hot side. Fogarty manages to catch a block, but certainly looks like she'll need to shake that one out.
Yeah, those discs get hard when it's cold, and it is right now, so that would be
Harrison Free applying huge pressure on the mark. Louis keeping it in. De Bruce. A big forehand. Again, Graydon Scott with the interception.
He just seems to be able to see ahead of what's actually happening. Like, if I had some glasses that saw into the future, I'm sure I'd see what he saw.
A big rip. Sends the backhand. Kept by DMT.
In the safe hands of Zitier, passes it off to Harrison.
And that's a huge upwind gain for them.
Yep.
As Scott closes in on the red zone.
Oh, and Graydon takes it after it bounces off a defender's hands.
Oh, call was made and retracted.
Something you don't often see in a normal game of Frisbee, catching your own throw, but I've seen it a bit this weekend and trying to adjust to that rule.
Oh.
Good use of rules and some good knowledge of how it works being shown here.
A turn giving Ethos another opportunity. Harrison Free establishing the mark position in that cup. Pushing out to the far sideline. Big huck goes up.
Bruce to grab it. Some veteran skills not throwing that immediately as you grab it. You feel real great and want to get it to the end zone, but
monster of a hammer. Unsurprisingly, Scott takes it, rips with a backhand of his own.
And Adler to pull that out of the sky.
Under triple coverage.
Zitier with a nice layout grab, reaching something that might not otherwise have been able to do.
And a pick has been called, so that's player interference where in order to avoid contact, this being a non-contact sport, players are forced, defenders in particular, are forced to prevent from following their opposing player to avoid that bodily contact. The pick has been resolved. Sheridan and Scott again working the disc together. Finds Free, who finds his footing. Enough pressure by Ethos to see that disc get overcommitted. A little bit of miscommunication by DMT means the disc goes as the receiver is moving in the opposite direction.
Some
So
good defense by 29 to stop that from coming off.
Absolutely. Huge pressure now on Ethos to go back the other way. A huge huck goes up. And only just outside of the Ethos receiver's range. Reminder that the soft cap has gone. We are still waiting for the next score to be made to determine what the next point cap will be.
Now we've seen some 20-plus minute points here, but this one won't go that long. If hard cap does go, you get 3 throws, and then the game ends.
Scott one more time. Mance. Huge pressure by Louis. Forehand goes off. Kept alive by Sheridan. Bruce to apply pressure on the mark.
Scott working really hard for that frisbee, going a direction you wouldn't think in this wind, and puts it up. And
A questionable defensive block as Ethos sees it come down, just doing everything to make sure it hits the ground, and instead driving it into the face of Adler.
Adler, who's tough, will just be saying, maybe hit it down instead of towards me, and he doesn't seem too upset about it. He's resuming play and he's happy.
Cotier finds ground. Looking for Fogarty. Not able to execute. Graydon.
Gets hand blocked by 29, and
It's very unlike him. It could just be a case of him trying to force the Ethos team to have to keep working the disc back up, trying to get the disc off in a hurry. Ethos able to get a read, managed to put a block on.
yeah, I think we've seen some points this game where if you throw a few hundred
Bruce
throws,
with a beautiful
nice.
catch. Again, that same big forehand huck comes up. The front edge of the disc is up. It catches a bit of wind and slows down. Bruce manages to get underneath it. We're going to see it again.
He'll be happy with his play in this game. He's been reliable in the end zone. Looks like he catches it between just 2 fingers.
Absolutely fantastic performance. 8-6 now.
Game to 9.
Game to 9, although there appear to only be about another 2.5 minutes on the clock before we hit that hard cap, as you said, and it becomes a final 3 passes before the game automatically ends.
Yes.
This is our second quarterfinal match. DMT currently up by 2, 1 point away from victory, 2 minutes left on the clock before the game will end. Ethos to come down on defense. Utteridge with the disc. Patience as the match comes to its final moments.
Richard Fernando takes to the field and wants to put on a show for us.
And you could absolutely see just what kind of impact that was, just how late in the piece Utteridge decided to pass the disc to Fernando. Under ordinary circumstances, be a comfortable 5-10 meter backhand to give someone else the disc, but here in the face of this wind, he had to wait until the very last moment to prevent the disc just disappearing and causing unnecessary delay to the game.
Yeah. These teams really battling it out to the end, 100 minutes is a long time to be playing the same game in these conditions.
A pull managing to make it past halfway. Once again, Graydon Scott on the disc. Beautiful connection. Finding Liddell. Very busy Ethos mark looking for something. Graydon Scott managing to get separation, but looked off. Scott again with the disc. Comfortable backhand. There's our game to 9.
Adler takes it in the end zone.
3 seconds before we
Hard
hit our
cap.
100-minute hard cap. A convincing victory by DMT. Helmed by the General Scott. Manages to secure a victory for his team and see DMT at the beginning of the tournament seated first among teams and making sure that they earn themselves a spot in the semi-finals.
Yes, I think Ethos will be happy with how they did there, and we'll let them talk that out on the field.
Absolutely. But that brings us to the end of this coverage of our game. 9-6 to Dunedin mixed team over Ethos. My name is Blair Monroe.
I'm Ben Weber.
And we are here at day 2 of the Division 2 Mixed Ultimate Championships in New Zealand in Christchurch. And we'll see you again shortly.